This is from the case files of Karl Mason. No one knows what became of the individual who sent this letter to Mr. Mason, but the case is still open. For the safety of the public, the entirety of this report has been unredacted, so that you may better protect yourself from what may lie ahead. Everyone called me Dr. Paul. It was June of 1998. I had just graduated from medical school, and I was in desperate need for some money. Who isn't these days? When I was contacted by someone who wanted to hire me, I was very nearly jumping for joy. The man said he worked for an organization called The Factory, and they were looking for medical professionals to help assist with some of the patients. I didn't even think twice before accepting the position. Looking back, maybe I should have. Nearly 2 weeks later, I began my work at the factory. It all seemed like a normal job at first. I was tasked with administering vaccinations to the patients and assisting the more experienced doctors with their procedures. Nothing out of the ordinary. Everything seemed to move along smoothly. Yes, there were occasional emergencies, but I thought that just came with the territory. No one can predict when something will go wrong, especially when some patients have a multitude of medical issues. No one can predict it. My apologies. Back to my experience. About a month into my job, I had my first late-night experience. One of the doctors, Dr. Robinson, had to head out of town to take care of some family matters, so I was given his shift. As I was roaming the halls, I came across a hall with just one door. The door had an armed guard standing on either side of it, and above it hung a red light. It was the first time I had seen anything like it in my time there. When I approached the first guard, I said, "Excuse me, I'm filling in for Dr. Robinson. Would you mind telling me what you're doing?" After getting a nod of approval from the man who I'd assume is his superior, the guard replied, "We're making sure the project doesn't escape." All I could say was, "Project?" I looked into the room through the tiny glass window on the door. Inside the room, or rather, the cell, was a woman with unkempt hair, clothed only in a stained tank top and sweatpants. I could see her picking at her fingers, a tiny pool of blood forming on the metal slab that was her bed. When she noticed that I was looking at her, she started to tap her fingers against the metal in an eerily rhythmic way. Very slowly. Peering at me as she lifted her head, she hissed one word. "Distress." Bags had formed under her eyes, and a purple bruise covered her forehead, like she had run straight into a wall. As she smiled, I could see a row of jagged yellow teeth protruding from her blackened gums. It was then that she reached down and tore out one of her fingernails, hurling it at the door and spraying blood from her bleeding finger across the glass. I almost had to turn away in disgust. I later found out from the guard that the woman had a severe case of CIP, or congenital insensitivity to pain. She had been nicknamed Distress by Dr. Robinson, because that was the one word that she had said when she arrived at the facility. It seemed like quite the ironic nickname at the time, especially since she could not feel pain. About a week later, I was roaming the halls, checking on my patients like normal. It was another late night, but I didn't think anything of it. Everything was going smoothly. That is, until I heard an ungodly scream. A group of doctors rushed into the room, wheeling a gurney beside them. A nurse lay on the gurney, blood spurting from her neck even as one of the doctors tried his best to apply pressure to the wound. The poor woman's arm was wrapped in a thick towel as a splotch of red quickly spread through the linens of the gurney. "Get her into operating room C12, the man ordered. I tried to ask what happened, but I got no answer as the doctors disappeared into the operating room. Curse my morbid curiosity. Stepping out into the hall, I made my way to the guarded door. There was already a crowd of people there, several of them being guards. A different nurse stood hunched against the wall, a splash of vomit at her feet. There was an uneasy silence in the hall as no one seemed sure of what to do. Even the guards spoke quietly. Through it all, I could hear one sound that stood out. I peered over the shoulder of one of the guards, trying to look into the room. Before that moment, I had always thought that I had a strong stomach. I was wrong. Inside the room, I could see the woman holding the severed hand of the injured nurse. Blood dripped from her mouth and whole segments of skin hung from her teeth. It almost looked like she had been chewing on the hand, trying to eat it. She looked up from the disgusting scene and stared directly at me. With blood coating her gums and tongue, she gurgled, "Distress." All I remember after that is feeling like I was about to throw up, and then darkness. I can only assume that it was several hours later. I don't really remember a time. I woke up on one of the gurneys as a nurse dabbed my head with a cloth. It nearly scared the shit out of me. Before I could ask what had happened, I heard the sound of multiple gunshots echoing through the halls. Men and women were screaming and cursing, all interspersed with the gunfire. Within seconds, an alarm started blaring, the lights in the hallways immediately turning red. I started to panic. Call me a coward, but there was no way that I was staying in that building. I didn't care who followed me. I didn't give a damn. I just wanted out. I ran through the halls like a madman, trying to find an emergency exit. Hell, I would have broken a window if I needed to. As I turned a corner, I nearly ran right into Dr. Robinson. He was panting like a dog, and sweat was pouring down his face. I tried to ask him what was wrong, but he could only give me one quick response. She escaped. Before I could ask anything further, his face contorted into a look of utter shock and despair. He forcibly shoved me behind him as I saw the woman stumble around the corner from where I just came. She looked like she had been shot, but that was not the only wound visible. Dr. Robinson tried to act calm, saying stuff like, "You're not well, young lady. We need to get you back to your cell." It looked like she had ripped the skin and muscle away from the tips of her fingers, leaving nothing but exposed bone. She held a Bunsen burner in her hand, holding her mutilated fingers over the open flame. The smell of burning flesh filled the hallway as I gagged and started to take steps backward. I could feel the woman's eyes following me even as her matted hair hung in front of her eyes. I could hear the animalistic snarls that came from her blood-stained lips. She did not even take her eyes off me as she drove her sharp bones into Dr. Robinson's gut, ripping his intestines out of his body. I did not stay to see anything else. I was not going to be slaughtered like a pig. I found an exit, sped off in my car, and headed straight home. I locked all my doors, triple-checking each of the locks before I called the police department. I don't know why I was concerned. It's not like the woman knew where I lived. She couldn't know. The police arrived 10 minutes later, but it felt like an eternity. I told them everything that had happened, but it did not seem like they believed me. They asked me to come along with them back to the scene, but I could not bring myself to go. When I told them that I feared for my life, they allowed me to stay where I was. They left a patrol car in front of the house, and a couple of officers were roaming around outside. And here we are. I'm too afraid to fall asleep. I'm too sickened to eat anything. The officers just heard on the radio that the others have found the bodies at the factory. There was no sign of the woman. She must be coming. No, she can't be coming. She can't. I just heard the sirens of another police car pulling up to the house. It almost sounds like it ran into something. There was a thud. Did it jump the curb? Why am I hearing gunshots and screams? I'm writing this so whoever reads this will know what happened to me. I'm getting my gun. All of the noises have stopped, but I hear a thump at the door. Oh God. Oh God!